It means the ministry's interfering at Hogwarts.
You're not going mad. You're just as sane as I am.
I must not tell lies.
You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I'm going to, what was the phrase? Come quietly.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 27, The Centaur and the Sneak. This is a special episode, so we have a couple of things to discuss before we get into it. But before we get to those, Elizabeth is here with us.
Hi, everyone.
So this is a big chapter, and we know we have a lot to cover.
I'm excited to be here for this one. This is fun.
Yeah, it's a very cool chapter, but we also have some very exciting things to go over at the beginning of this podcast because we recently got our Spotify Wrapped results for the year.
Yeah, at the time of recording this is our 2023 Wrapped.
Correct. And, you know, at this point in time, you know, Spotify doles out all of these statistics on what you're listening to, music, podcasts, whatever. So it gives us as podcasters feedback.
Which I love. I love looking at our stats. I just think it's so fun to see the numbers of what's going on with our podcast.
Elizabeth, I remember when 7 people were listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I was one of them.
And 4 of those people are on this podcast.
Yeah.
Safe to say that we have grown a little bit.
Yeah, it's crazy, honestly. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
So here's some of those statistics for those that are wondering. We've posted them to Twitter and Instagram and all that. So,
well, some of them they give us more statistics.
They give us
than what
more.
They just put on the wrap.
So there's a couple of things we'll share with you here that we haven't posted per se, but we are the top podcast for 1.4 thousand people.
That's so crazy.
That is insane. That's absolutely mind-blowingly insane. And we cannot be more thankful and blessed for that. Furthermore, we're the top 5 podcast for 6,000 plus people. And we're a top 10 podcast for 9,000 plus people.
Oh my gosh. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for listening to us.
It's humbling to really think about it.
Yeah. Your voice has been heard by all those people.
Well, my voice has also been heard in over 100 countries.
I remember when we thought we wouldn't get heard out of the state of Illinois.
Illinois, where we're based, is not even the top state of the United States. That we're California. Thank you to everybody listening in the state of California because you're our top U.S. state.
Yeah, shout out to you guys.
But we have most of our new listeners internationally. And domestically, I guess, have come from the following areas. Obviously, the U.S. is leading. Mm-hmm. Not terribly surprising since we're based there. Mm-hmm. Canada is number 2. Belgium is number 3. Thank you to all of our listeners in Belgium who are sharing the podcast. We have always had a strong listenership in Belgium, and clearly you guys are sharing it, so thank you very much.
Yeah, much appreciated.
We have a bunch of new listeners from Brazil, which might be the most surprising country on this list. I mean, obviously it's a very large country in South America,
that's super cool.
We thank you very much for listening. And Mexico also is on that top 5 list.
Our neighbors to the north and neighbors to the south. Hello, everyone.
Bienvenidos. Thank you to our listeners in Mexico. It's very cool that our voices have been heard in all these different places.
It's crazy.
If our podcast has shown up on your Spotify Wrapped, post it, share it, tag us in that post. We'd love to see it. We'd love to interact with you guys who are listening to us so much. Thank you specifically to Mabel_BVB. She shared a Spotify Wrapped result on Instagram and tagged us in her story, and we got to see it. And she was one of those people that said, quote, "Love this podcast. I listen to it as I fall asleep, so I have it playing all night."
That's super cool.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast, and thank you very much for sharing that Spotify Wrapped and tagging us in it. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, please share yours, like Dan said, if we're on it, and we'll repost you.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's it for all of the acknowledgments.
I don't know if people really fully understand just how excited we are and like amazed.
Yeah, amazement, astonishment. Like I said, a lot of hard work does go into this, and seeing all of you guys enjoy what we're putting out there,
It's really cool.
it makes it worth it.
Yeah.
So thank you guys.
Yay.
Okay, well, we'll get past all of the stats and all of that
All the
good stuff.
gushing about how awesome everybody is.
And we'll get to the actual chapter, which is what all of you are here to listen to. So,
Specifically, the very, very first detail of this chapter, I think, is why people are here.
like I said, we're covering chapter 27, the Centaur and the Sneak. So obviously, there's a Centaur and a Sneak that we have to cover. And yes, we do get off to a very interesting couple of details, which I just found awkward and, quite frankly, a little unpleasant.
You mean you've never curled your eyelashes around a wand?
Okay, first of all, just the actual practicality of that. How long are your eyelashes? Or
it'd be similar to if you had like a pencil and you tried to put it up to your eye and you just press it around it.
Your eyelashes need to be of a certain length, which seems unnatural, number one. And I get that there are fake eyelashes. Seems
There's also
odd.
mascara that can add on to the length a bit.
Sure.
I'm sure there's magical
curl
lengthening
it
of your
around
eyelashes.
a wand. How thin is your wand?
True.
Or yes, that's where
I guess pressing around the edge.
That's where I was going to get to is, did they magically lengthen their eyelashes?
I don't think they've lengthened him. I don't think they're trying to go for the length of what are those? Aren't there llamas or something with really long eyelashes that are super, super
I'm sure
fancy?
there are several animals with
something like that where everyone's like, oh, I envy their eyelashes. I don't think they're lengthening them to an unnatural length. I just think
to be curling them with a wand. Yes,
I think it's just around the edge, not necessarily the whole wand. They're just trying to I might try to press up my eyelashes a little bit and try to curl them a little bit.
After everything I just said, with our numbers growing, do you think anybody from around the world? Do you think
this is the quality discussion you come for?
Do you think anybody expected our podcast to start with an eyelash breakdown? I'm not sure.
Hogwarts is bad. Well, I mean, they're doing it because they're like, ooh, Ferenz, did you see him? He's so attractive. And Hermione's like, yeah, he's a horse.
He has 4 legs.
He has 4 legs. I did feel like Hermione was being a little bit rude because she's just like, whatever, he's not my type. He's a horse. I'm not saying that she should be lusting after a man who has 4 legs and hooves, but he could be attractive without being
but seriously,
I with him.
Seriously, though, this is a little odd. Right?
You never had a crush on your teacher?
No. My teacher has been not humanoid, human. Just human.
You can appreciate beauty in someone without necessarily being But they do seem
no.
They do seem to be taking it to the point where it's okay, I want him to love me.
It's a little lusting here.
Yeah.
It's a little lustful. It's not Ferenz is a beautiful centaur.
Right.
No. That's not where they're going.
Right.
It's a little lustful, which I feel like is a little odd. I'm not going to lie.
Well, Hermione doesn't care that she's missing out on it because it's still divination and she's still not a fan.
Let's get to his actual class. Can we get to the facts instead of all of this
eyelash talk?
Eyelash, vain beauty talk.
Have you ever curled your eyelashes?
No. Although I have been told I have very long, luscious eyelashes.
Men always seem to, and it drives me nuts. In any case. So yeah, the divination classroom is no longer up in the ceiling like Trelawney's room.
Well, she's still living there.
She's still living there. Plus, I mean, he can't get up the rope ladder. He has 4 legs.
Yes.
It'd be a problem.
Climbing a ladder would be difficult.
Yeah, so now we're in room 11, which
is on the ground floor.
I also didn't realize there were so many unused classrooms in Hogwarts. Sure. I mean, I know that there have been empty classrooms that they wandered in, but to me, I just get this sense of this empty, abandoned hallway with all these rooms that are just, I don't know, storage. Does Filch go over there and put cleaning supplies in them or something? Does Peeves hang out in a classroom? Do you think Peeves has a classroom that's specifically for him to live in?
Probably. They also could use them for detentions or something like that. Clean them or organize them or whatever.
True.
But we find out that Albus has specifically done some wonderfully beautiful magic to this particular room. He's created a forest clearing, complete with slightly mossy ground, trees growing, the leaves spanning across the ceiling,
being
boulders.
able to see like the sky and the ceiling, like the stars.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's part of it. Is the room magically inclined? Did he charm it to react to Ferencz's movements? Or how is that working? Because Ferenc makes a motion.
Of that VR type of technology.
Well, Ferenc makes a motion, and then the leaves come away,
right,
to show the night sky.
Right. I mean, he doesn't have a wand.
Correct.
So it could.
I don't know what the magical I don't know if they're goblins or house elves that have an innate magic to them,
right?
Or if they're just a creature in the magical world who's completely
I could see
sentient.
it as Dumbledore programming the room to just respond to Ferenc.
Maybe an intuitive form of magic.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing him a big favor by teaching the class.
You don't think he's sitting outside looking in a window, just being and now, okay, now, and he just waits his one.
Too much to do right now. He can't be messing with moving trees.
But anyway, it's a really, really cool room. Just in general.
The point where they walk in and they're we kind of forget that we're not indoors. It feels like we are in the forest outside at night. Really immersive.
Mm-hmm. We do find out some information on Ferenc in that he has been banished from his herd for agreeing to work for Albus Dumbledore.
Right, he's got the hoof bruise on his chest.
The shadow of a hoof print on his chest.
Yeah. I do feel bad for Dean. I know he wasn't meaning it to be offensive, but when he asked the question of oh yeah, did Hagrid breed you guys? It's oh, child. No, that's really actually a very offensive. I do like that the friends didn't I mean, he gave him a look made him realize it, but he didn't call him out on it and embarrass him. But it's just one of those oh, cringy.
Now, to be fair, yeah, Dean off base comment.
Mm-hmm.
Fair. Ferenc isn't exactly the kindest individual to humans either.
True.
He takes some shots at humans very directly.
Are you talking about the shots at Trelawney?
Well, okay, so he does take some time out to actually have some commentary on Trelawney,
mm-hmm.
and he doesn't take shots at the person Sybil Trelawney so much as he does the human race as a whole.
Well, especially human seers.
So there's a couple of things there. He does say that human seers or fortune tellers, which he does make a difference between the two.
Mm-hmm.
But he says a lot of it is focused on trivial human accidents that are of actual no real significance.
Yeah, he said there are of no more significance than the scurrying of ants to the wide universe, and they are unaffected by planetary movements.
So his interpretation is Trelawney may or may not see, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. If she doesn't see, then she's more that fortune teller type. And if she does see, okay, that's great. But what are you focusing on seeing?
Right. He says she wastes too much time with trying to explain away trivial burns and accidents like that. The planets really don't care what you're doing.
Yeah, it's just really she's just flawed by the limitations of being human
mm-hmm.
more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So really, it's not so much a shot at her personally, seers, or any kind of fortune teller type person. It's more of a humans are cute.
Which makes me wonder, okay, this is obviously a subject that apparently humans can teach-ish to a degree, but clearly the Centaurs, part of their breed is just studying the stars and being able to read the fortune, and obviously we know they're too proud to really help out the humans, and okay, that's fine. But it makes me wonder how much more the wizarding world could gain if other non-human creatures taught their magical skills.
Here's my thing with Ferenc and his class.
Mm-hmm.
Because he also says that while humans spend so much time worrying about insignificant things, and centaurs are here
mm-hmm.
with real, true wisdom.
Well, impersonal and impartial wisdom.
Wisdom. He uses wisdom.
Right.
Not sloughing off human insignificance. He uses the word wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
And the wisdom of centaurs. Well, it takes time.
Takes years.
It takes decades, potentially. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
How much fortune telling are you doing?
Kinda. I'm like, I'm sorry. It takes decades to figure out if you were on the right path.
Uh-huh.
You're people have slammed Trelawney for making indirect, maybe not predictions that maybe can come true, but you don't really know if it's coming true in months.
I guess you're right. At what point does you making a prediction and how long you wait for it to come true still make that a prediction versus like, well, I'm just waiting and then I'll give you my full take on what I interpreted.
Yeah. So, I mean, he does backtrack a little bit because later on he says that even centaurs do mistake signs and divining the future is not exactly a foolproof endeavor.
Which makes sense because, I mean, if we're going to say that free will is what rules things as opposed to fate, then the choices people make would be constantly shifting the timeline that they're trying to be predicting. So what you predict at one point could very well not be true anymore based on actions of people.
So he does make some interpretations of some signs. So what we do is, as you said, at one point the leaves spread from the ceiling and you see the night sky and everybody notices that Mars is particularly bright. That's another reference to Mars.
We have been hearing Mars is bright tonight since, like, I mean, gosh, book one.
Book one.
Yeah.
So it's another reference to Mars.
Mars, the bringer of war.
Yeah, conflict, bloodshed, all kinds of things. Not generally positive. Which a lot of the kids bring up. That's like, hey, Mars is bright, that means X, Y, or Z. And Friends is like, children.
He sounds like me.
Humans.
Like, child, oh my gosh.
But he makes this dire statement. Trelawney gets in trouble for saying that a kid will die, or a kid might die. He goes, wizard kind living in brief calm between two wars.
Okay. No, I have qualms about that. I feel like it's still worse for Trelawney to say, like, one of us will die by the end of the year.
He's saying lots of people could die. Lots of people.
Okay.
Wars aren't
The difference
peaceful.
is she's literally like holding Harry's hand and being like, you will be dead soon. Soon. And, oh, I'm too sad to continue our lessons. Children, pack up and go to your next class because we cannot continue any further. And he's being like, look, all of humanity right now should be paying attention to what's going on around us because it is getting into a very conflicted time and place, and we need to like start working together or else, yeah, as a society, we're going to be doomed. I feel like it's more of a warning than Trelawney's because Trelawney seems more like, once again, I'm trying to be impressive and make everyone else feel
That's
like,
fine, but one makes a dire prediction, gets slammed by everybody. The other one makes a dire prediction and praise Ferenz! He's the best! I'm like, come on, people. Come on.
I think it's still just because it's more generalized and maybe it's easier to
I'm sorry, more generalized than Trelawney?
Well, it's not be like, hey, you specifically, you're going to be dead by the end of the year. It's more, I think it's easier to remove yourself when it's just like the general population as opposed to...
So they're more vague.
Yes. But I think
that makes him better.
I think so, only because I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think
you're casting the net wider, so a better possibility of you hitting on your prediction.
I think it just makes it seem more realistic because, like we already said, the future is so hard to predict. So if you're being wider net of possibilities, then when
there's a little double talk here,
it seems more likely.
When Trelawney makes a vague prediction, people get on her for it. Well,
but her vague prediction was about a specific student who was, what, 13 years old?
She made several vague predictions. Like about lavender and the thing you dread will happen on this day. Like several vague predictions.
Right.
And people hammered her for it. Like, oh, of course something could possibly happen, blah, 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 blah. He's casting a wide net here.
Yeah, but I still feel like his is more
Something you dread
Like,
might happen in
no,
the
no,
next
no, no.
30 years,
Okay,
Elizabeth. Something might happen.
Here's what I'm going to make in terms of a muggle comparison, right? They say you study history so that you don't repeat it, even though history repeats itself all the time because we humans are stupid. So he's saying, look, we're studying the stars, we're studying the future. Here is what we foresee happening. I'm telling you this, similar to the way the Sorting Hat did, as a warning of watch your own actions, watch what you're doing, watch what you're thinking, because we're going towards a dark place. Whereas with Trelawney being like, hey, you specific child, you're probably going to be dead by the end of the year. Sorry.
So he's making that prediction based on the two wars thing, based on the skies.
Right.
He says how soon that second war is coming
Right.
will be further divined by burning leaves and herbs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like looking for certain patterns in the smoke.
Correct.
Yeah.
So he does this, and Harry notes that there's a pungent odor coming from the flames.
Mm-hmm.
No one sees anything in the flames.
And Francis is like, that's fine. Humans don't really usually see that anyway.
Well, that's when he makes even centaurs can make mistakes, and nothing is really foolproof in this.
Which does remind me of Trelawney.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There are parallels here between their classes, whether you like it or not.
Right.
A pungent odor. Her
she does have an odor in her room.
Perfume.
Yeah.
Is her odor to get you kind of in that like divine sense, and Ferenz is not above using odor to help the sight either. By burning leaves and herbs, you get that odor.
Well, the whole like you might not see it anyway reminds me of what
her first
class comment. Yeah.
So they agree on that as well. If you don't have the sight, then don't worry about it because you're not going to see anything anyway.
Okay, I think it comes across as less judgmental from Ferenz than it does from Trelawney, which makes me feel like there's a little bit of sexism going on here. Both experts in their field. I think it's just Trelawney, the way that she presents herself, she comes across as more of a weirdo than Ferenz does, even though he is part horse. And it's because he has a more calming demeanor about stuff, where she seems like such a weird oddball, which is an unfair thing, and maybe it's just because we're seeing it through Harry's perspective and the way the kids treat her. Kids are not usually kind to people who they deem as odd, but the kids are intimidated by Ferenz, so maybe that's part of it.
I think demeanor is everything. They're saying a lot of generally the same things as far as the grand scheme of divination goes. And he acknowledges seers as being legitimate, just focusing on the wrong things. And
true seers being more rare.
True. I think the demeanor that he has, and I think kids being a little bit more intimidated that a centaur is in the room, leads more to them being
them
in awe versus being distracted by how odd this all is. I
think it's part of why McGonagall is so respected and Snape is so respected, even though, like you said before, their first lessons are just as impressive as Trelawney's.
And this is by the way, this is also
an impressive
first lesson because they're all awed by the room.
Right.
And the figure standing in front of them.
Right. I think it's very much the demeanor of, I am confident in what I'm teaching you. I know my subject. I'm going to present it to you, and you can trust that I'm an expert in it. I think Trelawney just fails at presenting herself as an expert, which is unfortunate because she obviously has some skills. It just needs to be... I don't know if it's like just because it's magic, the kids need more of a like, oh, I'm a mystify kind of thing.
I think part of it, and we've talked a little bit about backgrounds on this podcast, and I think part of it is where Trelawney has come from.
And who she has to live up to be.
And has, not even that, but just how she has to deal on a day-by-day basis and where Friends is coming from. Trelawney gets made fun of constantly, not just by the fandom, in this book, in series, she gets made fun of, she gets put down all the time, and she has to fight over that.
Whereas Friends, he's been surrounded by people similar to him, respected and is heard until this.
Centaurs are conversely generally respected
Mhm.
and carry a demeanor about them that's more regal, maybe?
And they all accept that seeing is true.
So one carries herself in a certain way because of what she's experienced as a person,
Mm-hmm.
and the other carries himself in a certain way because what they've experienced as a centaur in our herd. Those life experiences matter in how you present yourself in this given moment.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but it's the reality of it. There's a lot to break down in Ferenz's first lesson. He gives us a lot here. He gives us similar things to Trelawney. He gives us some different things than Trelawney.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those differences and similarities are really interesting to pick through. I don't think they're very different, other than how they carry themselves.
And their species.
Well, yeah, but that aside. But how they carry themselves matters.
Yeah, no.
And I think that's the difference in how the kids treat them.
Yeah.
And even how the staff members treat them.
Yeah.
But
I didn't picture a whole Trelawney debate going on again. But that's not the end of Friends. He does have a message specifically for Harry to give to Hagrid. And he said to go tell him the attempt is not working. He'd be better to abandon it. And when Harry asked for more information of, okay, what attempt are you talking about? He's like, okay, I respect Hagrid. He has shown over the years that he cares about every living creature in the Forbidden Forest. I will not betray his confidence, but tell him because he needs to be woken up from the attempt that he's attempting.
he's being vague again.
Yep.
He refuses to tell Harry details, and he masks it with, I'm respecting Hagrid's privacy. Are you? Because you're telling Harry to go tell him no. Go tell him stop.
To be fair, he fits in well with the Hogwarts staff of not giving all the details. Harry does attempt it, though. He said it took a few times because Umbridge has been coming to every single lesson now, and he can't obviously say anything in front of Umbridge. So he said he pretended to forget his copy of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and he kind of like circled back. Which, I just have the question. What happened to the Monster Book of Monsters?
Umbridge would not have approved of that book.
So you think they just chucked them out into the forest or something?
No, I think that was probably...
Is there like a library within the forest just living and ripping each other's pages out?
I think that's a Hermione suggestion of you might not want to use that textbook.
Use the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them instead.
Yeah. Now, in Harry trying to talk to Hagrid, but failing, there's a massive time jump here. We go from February to April.
Yeah, that's big.
That's a big time jump. Again, Mandy Brocklehurst moment, missed. We also get a little tidbit of, now that it's April, we're getting down to exam time.
Yes, this means stress.
We get the note that Hannah Abbott is the first to receive a calming draught for panicking over the exams.
Yeah, too much stress and anxiety. She said that she was too stupid, just fail her at everything right now.
My career requires a certification exam, and that exam is everything. If I don't pass that, I can't get certified, I can't work. And that is stressful. Yeah, so Hannah Abbott is the first one to kind of...
Need help.
Have to have a little help getting through.
Yeah. My experience in teaching, this is my 12th year teaching, and I have noticed more and more and more with finals and just regular tests too. Students, there seems to be an increased amount of anxiety when it comes to test time than what I remember us having as high schoolers. Like I remember stressing and studying and whatever, but it does seem like a lot get the test and immediately their mind goes blank and they panic and they start making really silly mistakes that I know they actually don't mean to make, or I know they actually have the knowledge. They're just getting into their own head. Sometimes the kids come to me with questions. I'm like, you're thinking too much. Honestly, like, you know the answer. You're just talking yourself out of it. So for finals, it's like that times 10. They freak out. And I feel like a calming draught would be really helpful for some of them.
Speaking of students trying to prepare and study for passing their OWLs, We get another look into the DA lessons and Defense Against the Dark Arts.
It's Patronus time.
Harry has started Patronuses. We get the info that Cho's Patronus has taken the form of a swan. Hermione's has taken the form of an otter, which are two students that have come quite a long way as far as Patronuses go, because we also find out Lavender, Neville, and Seamus are really just producing puffs of smoke at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Lavender, she's really trying. Seamus, like, this is his first meeting, so the fact that he's getting anything close to anything is impressive. I just feel so bad for Neville. I mean, Harry describes Neville, like, he's trying so hard, he's sweating, and it's like, this poor child can't come up with a moment happy enough to create a Patronus. That's so sad.
Well, I don't know if it's that, or if he's trying too hard, or if it's just difficult magic. I mean, I think it's not the easiest thing to do in the world. And you have multiple students clearly at roughly the same level. It just so happens that Cho and Hermione have seemed to separate themselves from this pack so far. So, I mean, I don't know.
It's similar to Harry. I mean, his first attempt wasn't, automatically...
Right, and he had to do it with the added stress of a boggart in the room. So.
And a lot of chocolate. He hasn't provided any of them with chocolate.
Well,
Where's the chocolate, Harry?
They haven't had to deal with actual fear. That's why. But anyway. However, they haven't had to deal with actual fear yet.
Until right this very moment.
Until this moment, where we get word from Dobby that Umbridge is coming. So she's clearly forbidden them from speaking about this.
He said she told the house elves specifically, do not warn anybody. Which intrigues me, because I feel like Umbridge wouldn't be the kind of person to go to the house elves.
She has the wherewithal and the foresight to go to the house elves.
I mean, most of the students
that speaks volumes.
Most of the students don't know the house elves even exist in the castle.
I think this is a real insight into Umbridge that we get here, that she went to house elves.
Yeah, I really don't know what would have possessed her to do that. I mean, she's not aware of the relationship between Harry and Dobby, right?
No, but maybe we as a fan base underestimate how smart she actually is.
Yeah.
Just because she's cruel doesn't mean she's not intelligent.
Yeah.
So.
Well, unlucky for her, house elves can disobey the orders. I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but
Harry coaxes it.
Harry has practice with Dobby, and he was able to get out of him that, Umbridge knows she's coming, so he warns everyone to run. And what I love is he orders Dobby to not tell Umbridge that he told, and forbids him from giving any kind of warning, tells him to lie about warning them, and he's not allowed to punish himself. This is an order, yes, which ordinarily Hermione would probably be like, oh, you can't order the house elves, that's so cruel. But this is literally an order to protect Dobby as much as it is to protect the kids. It's an order out of not out of cruelty, out of
necessity.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously Umbridge is coming. So now here's the bit. It's a little rushed and it's a little chaotic because everybody panics.
Right.
It's a pure panic situation from Harry, which isn't actually in his usual repertoire of emotions.
Usually he would be much calmer with trying to figure out.
Usually he's much better in these situations.
Yeah.
But here he just straight up panics.
Maybe it's just because he's getting so many friends into a dangerous situation.
It's not him.
It's not just him. Yeah.
Ultimately, this ends up in Dumbledore's office. As Harry is caught.
There's a lot of people in his
There's
office.
a lot of people. You have Albus, McGonagall, Fudge, Kingsley, Percy in the corner with quill and parchment in front of him.
Ready to go.
And an unknown wizard who is present, who we later find out is Dawlish.
Right.
Fudge begins to question Harry. And Harry wants to lay it all out there.
Well, yeah, because Harry's
He wants to stick it to Fudge.
Yeah.
But he catches Dumbledore.
Consider, this is the first time Harry has seen Fudge in the flesh since the summer, when they were smearing his name in every paper, and even before that, when Fudge didn't believe him about Cedric's death, he's been wanting to go at him for this whole time.
So Harry thinks about it for just a split second, sees Dumbledore, and is like,
no.
he changes his answer mid-word.
Yeah.
And he just catches this slight
Head shake.
whisper, shadow of a wink
Yeah.
from Dumbledore, and then he completely buys into this whole denial.
Mm-hmm.
Just deny.
Now here's my question. Do you think Dumbledore has been aware about these meetings this entire time, or do you think he just found out about them but was like real quick on the reflexes of what we need to do proceeding forward?
No, Dumbledore is definitely aware of it because of Mundungus being in the Hogshead.
True, but do you think he realized that it was continuing? Because, I mean, we know eventually...
I think he assumes.
We know eventually he sees that the group's name is Dumbledore's Army, and that seems to take him a little bit by surprise.
Dumbledore's greatest quality that I think makes him so brilliant is his ability to think very quickly, given information. The back and forth between Fudge and Harry ends in this Fudge throwing up his arms and like,
I was like, this is going nowhere.
This is going nowhere.
Stupid.
Just bring in the informant.
Right.
And we'll get down to the whole thing. So Umbridge brings in Marietta Edgecombe, who is the informant, and she is very hesitant. Marietta's hesitant to speak or say anything at all in this. She looks distraught. As we find out that she has the word in large purple pustules sneak written across her head.
Right.
And then
which is probably why she's not saying anything more. She's afraid of making the jinx get even worse.
Right. But that's when Umbridge kind of explains that really everything, and that included the facts about Marietta's mom working in the magical transportation office, specifically the Flu Network, and that's how they've been going through the fires, policing the fires.
Even with that, like what's interesting to me is the fact that Marietta really didn't give that much information. Like Umbridge said that she went up to her and told her that if she went up to the 7th floor, she'd find what we know is to be the room of the requirement, but she just kind of said it's like the special room. She'd find a secret meeting going on there, and that was when Hermione's jinx automatically activated. She didn't even really say that it's the Defense Against the Dark Arts group. She didn't say it was Dumbledore's army. She didn't say anything very specific. So this is a lot of like Umbridge having to guess as to what was going on. I mean, an educated guess, but still it's just a guess. And I think that's what's able to give Dumbledore so much wiggle room with what's about to happen.
There's some interesting things about Marietta here. Like, when I'm reading this passage, what made her give up the DA now?
Yeah, I don't know why she decided to snitch now.
Like, what's the point in April? You've already gone through a lot of these lessons. What is the turning point here? Her friendship with Cho.
Oh, maybe.
So the only thing Marietta has in this whole thing, she has, her mom is clearly on Umbridge's side as far as what needs to be going on at Hogwarts.
Mm-hmm.
2, her friendship with Cho.
So you're thinking she wants revenge because Harry's starting to hang out with her too much and stealing her away from her?
That Quibbler article comes out. Cho is now back on Harry's good side.
Uh-huh.
Their relationship is back on track.
Because he was so brave.
So, that's the only thing I could think of that Marietta would now feel like, I need to stop this.
Yeah, no, I could see that. I could very much see that.
Like, reading this passage, I'm just like, what?
Well, because we've been talking this whole time of, like, why is Marietta, like, Cho's friend, right? Like, their friendship doesn't always seem to be amazing, so why is she still hanging around her? I could very much see this as being a toxic friendship of, you're not paying as much attention to me as I would like, so I'm going to rat on your boyfriend and shut down the thing that's been bringing you joy and alone time with him.
Maybe.
Yeah?
I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas because I literally sat here reading this and I'm like, why now?
Yeah, I had that same question too.
Why now?
Yeah.
But anyway, Umbridge then goes into how she had a report from Willie Wittershins, who told her everything about what Harry said in the Hog's Head that day.
Which is how she knows about, like, this had to have been a DA meeting.
Which I love when McGonagall calls out the Ministry for, oh, that's why he wasn't prosecuted for those exploding toilets.
I love the portraits being like, oh, we didn't make deals with petty criminals in my day. Like,
it's a
fair point.
It's a gutsy call out by McGonagall.
Uh-huh.
And they don't really have an answer for it. They kind of just shuffle on and continue.
What I love is the syntax of this next bit, where Umbridge said that the meeting was definitely illegal, and Dumbledore's like, no, it wasn't.
You get Albus pointing out that the time of the Hogshead meeting, that meeting was in fact not illegal.
Right.
Umbridge tries to point to the fact that Harry participated in an illegal activity at the Hog's Head.
The first one took place, but that was before it was illegal. So who's to say that more lessons have been taking place? Like,
Correct.
This could have just been the first one since then.
So then they turn back to Marietta.
Mm-hmm.
And they're asking Marietta specifically, okay, has anything taken place since that original meeting at the Hog's Head?
And lo and behold, her answer is a shake of the head.
At this point, Harry notices Kingsley doing some shenanigans.
Yeah. Kingsley is quicker on the uptake than Harry is with Dumbledore's.
As he should be.
As he should be. But in terms of, like, Dumbledore's intentions, we know he must have done a memory charm on Marietta, so she couldn't remember months worth of lessons. And, I mean, now she's a clear witness. She has no proof.
Can we just talk for a second about, is that okay?
Honestly, like, from a teacher's perspective, I would be so angry if everything that I just taught this child was out of her brain based on one moment.
Wow, you're focusing on the wrong thing. So,
okay, is it okay to erase someone's memories like that? No. Obviously, this was necessary, though, because this is a dangerous situation.
Do the ends justify the means? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's okay to invade not only someone's mind and change something about them, but especially a child's mind. You're literally changing, unwillingly, a minor's memory. I don't know if that's morally okay.
Doesn't have any rules about minors versus, except for stupid things about, like, you did underage magic or animal.
I understand that whole cliched phrase of all's fair in love and war, and this is war. Still,
I think this is, again, Dumbledore knowing the big picture and the little details that go into it, and making sacrifices and stuff to bring about the better good, greater good.
All right, fine. Then we will talk about some
Albus. More in the spoilers.
We'll talk more about Albus and morals in the spoiler section.
Regardless,
but point is, I'm not sure that that's exactly okay.
Well, we can debate it. Come back in the spoilers for that debate.
So Marietta doesn't give Umbridge the answer she wants, and Umbridge begins. We got to get this verbiage right. Begins shaking Marietta very hard.
Yeah.
And this is the first time Albus is upset and asserts his dominance in the room.
If she wasn't a ministry goon, she'd be out of education so quickly. She'd get fired so quickly.
Albus gets up and angrily waved his wand, which ends up burning Umbridge's hands, and says specifically she shouldn't manhandle his students.
Right.
And then Kingsley chips in because he asserts his presence in the room.
Right, he tries to calm her down, and she's like, oh yeah, I must remember myself, you're right.
I can envision Kingsley coming over and being like, you'll want to stay calm here.
Yeah.
You'll want to calm yourself.
Yeah.
But in that, like, tone where it's just like, it's half threat, half advice of like, watch yourself right now. Mm-hmm. Albus is then presented with the Dumbledore's Army parchment.
Right. So I think he sees his name and it's like, this is both touching and moving, but also, okay, this is a wrench that I wasn't expecting. So much of trying to protect Harry, now I'm going to protect him by sacrificing myself.
I think he's taken aback by in a split moment. But then he recovers, and I think he sees opportunity.
Well, yeah, because he said, "Oh, look, you expected to, suspend Harry. Now you get to arrest me."
Well, so the thing that takes everybody back in the room is he gives up. He's like,
very quickly.
You got me.
Yeah.
It's my bad.
Yeah.
Like, you got me. It's my fault. And immediately McGonagall and Kingsley look a little bit like, what?
Yeah.
And Fudge can finally nail down Albus Dumbledore, and he forgets all about Harry.
I mean, Dumbledore is like, oh, yeah, all your fears were true. I have been plotting against you this entire time.
So Fudge wants to send Albus to Azkaban to await trial, and Dumbledore...
Like, what a waste of time.
Dumbledore comes up with this wonderful quote. Quote, "You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I am going to..." What is the phrase? "Come quietly?" End quote. And Dawlish moves forward with his wand, and Albus is like, "I'm sure you're an excellent Auror. You got excellent in all your NEWTS newts, and all your newts. I will have to hurt you." Mm-hmm. Like, that's a bold comment to make. And then we get McGonagall attempting to aid in this escape of Dumbledore, but ultimately Albus ends up knocking out Fudge, Umbridge, Kingsley, and Dawlish in one foul swoop.
Mm-hmm. He tells them pretend like no time has passed, because they're going to think no time has passed, and makes Harry one final warning: study occlumency.
Yes.
Study it.
Takes time to really reaffirm that point to Harry.
Mm-hmm.
And Albus tells McGonagall, "Fudge will wish he never dislodged me from Hogwarts. Mm-hmm. I promise you."
He grabs Fawkes. They disappear. The minister wakes up, and then the final sentence: "Minister, I disagree with Dumbledore on many counts, but you cannot deny he's got style."
From Phineas Nigellus, of all people. From Phineas Nigellus.
Respect from him.
With that, we will end it here, and we will head to the spoilers section. Be right back. And we're back for the spoilers section of Chapter 27, The Centaur and the Sneak. So we had a little bit of a debate towards the end of the non-spoiler there about the morality of Albus Dumbledore, and particularly referring to some of his tactics in the Second Wizarding War. And the thing that really got us on this conversation was Kingsley modifying the memory of a student to ensure the outcome that they wanted to have happen in that moment.
She'd be, 16 years old, right?
Roughly, give or take.
Okay.
Still a minor, still under the age of...
Because for them, age of 17 is...
adulthood.
Yeah.
So not an adult.
Right. Almost, but not.
So Dumbledore gets very, very upset with the physical
abuse
altercation
between
Umbridge and Marietta.
Yeah.
Totally fine with the mind trick that Kingsley puts on Marietta. So I'm like, I get that we're supposed to be rooting for this. We're supposed to be like, ooh, Kingsley was so good to do that really quickly and so, slick and unnoticeable. But I'm sitting there reading this, I'm like, is he right to do that? Like, morally right.
Dumbledore is just so good at chess. I think that's once again why Ron got awarded those points back their first year, because it was like, oh yeah, that was a good.
To be fair, this is a
chess game.
To be fair, this is I guess a Kingsley moral question, because he's the one that does
Kingsley's doing what Dumbledore wants him to. He knows this is like order business, and this is what's going to help the situation.
So Kingsley is like, this could be a problem for Dumbledore.
Yeah, he's predicting Dumbledore's actions, or what Dumbledore's wishes, I guess. He's
acting upon what he thinks Dumbledore would want, but he's still one making the decision and acting. It's not like Dumbledore's being like... I guess it'd be
similar in a war if your general's not necessarily there to give you orders, but you know what's best for the situation.
Sure. So, Kingsley's obviously doing the action, but obviously we get Dumbledore later going like, wow, Kingsley was really good on that.
I was thank him for that. He was quick on the uptake.
Yeah.
It was perfect timing. If he had hesitated, it wouldn't have worked.
First of all, side note to that, brilliant magic by Kingsley to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that takes real skill.
And he picked the perfect moment. Everyone was looking the other way.
Yeah. I still am not sure that was morally right.
So, what would you have preferred?
I get the all's fair in love and war thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mentioned in the non-spoiler. I get that.
I mean, let's play that what if. If he hadn't erased her memory, she could have snitched on all the week's worth. Unless she just...
Yeah, it doesn't
unless
go
she just
well.
decided, like, not to say anymore because she's afraid of sneak spreading across her whole body as opposed to just her face.
Well, what you hope... That gets Harry in more trouble. At that point, Harry's still under the crosshairs. He's in trouble.
Do you think Dumbledore makes this decision, or like hopes Kingsley makes this decision because he's so important on... Like, he's so wanting Harry to learn occlumency right now? And he has to be able to stay in school in order to learn it? Or do you think there's, like,
because
other
he could
factors?
be a Grimmauld place and have Snape come to Grimmauld place.
You know Snape won't travel for that.
He will if Dumbledore tells him to.
Yeah, but he'd have to, like... I mean, he can't just separate.
Oh, there are
the
ways.
castle.
There are ways to have that happen.
He can't go through the flu powder.
It's inconvenient for Snape,
And
but
Sirius wouldn't be pleased with this.
well, okay. So inconveniences to Snape and Sirius, invading the mind of a child. What are we talking about? Like, I'm sorry. What are we actually talking about?
Well, I'm just so curious of like obviously Dumbledore wants Harry to stay in school. That's important.
I understand.
But I just wonder if it's because you have to be here to study occlumency so we can keep Voldemort out of your brain, or if there's like a bigger picture thing here that we just aren't.
I don't understand. Like, apparently Dumbledore has this thing where he's very anti-physical abuse, but mental and emotional attacks he doesn't seem to mind.
Yeah,
because Barty Crouch Jr. / Mad Eye Moody was putting the Imperius curse on people, taking away their free will. Totally fine, apparently.
I mean, when we think
weird.
back to like Dumbledore's background, I mean, his brother even flat out says in book 7, you know, Dumbledore's always, he learned from their mother that he's always been good at the manipulation game because that's who he learned it from.
I'm just saying, I get this works out well, but this probably prevents Harry from being expelled for sure. But if they have that Dumbledore's army call sheet,
all of them would have also gotten in trouble.
Maybe not necessarily, because as soon as they pull that out and Dumbledore then sees Dumbledore's army, he still spins it the way he spins it.
Well, I think if he hadn't spun it, it would have been Dumbledore's in trouble, Harry's in trouble, Hermione's in trouble, Ron's. Every single person on that list is in trouble. Then their parents are questioned. How much were you aware of this? Did you approve of this? They get into trouble. It allows the ministry to put more control into place other than Umbridge, because clearly there's precedent that we need more control. So then Hogwarts becomes just another outlet of the ministry. I think... You
have no qualms about...
No, I'm not saying that. I agree that this is a minor and trying to do such a thing is horrible, but I do think that Dumbledore... When he sees his name on the list, he plays very, very, very quick mental chess of what's the best outcome. None of the outcomes are great, but that would be the one that causes the least amount of destruction. I mean, he's taking from her just the memories of her being in an illegal group, like a legal social group. She still has all her other memories, just not the memories of going to the DA for however many months.
I think they did a slick thing at the end of this little interaction when he's like, ooh, that memory charm or whatever that Kingsley put on her was great. It reads up until that very line when he says memory charm like Kingsley put the Imperius curse on her.
Really? That's how you read it?
That's how I read it up until that literal line.
Like that at all.
Glazed blank look.
I know, I've seen glazed blank look as memory.
I see it as
the description of that Muggle in book 4 when they're at the Quidditch World Cup. The one every time they put the memory charm on, he's kind of got the dazed look.
That was after like presumably hundreds of memory charms.
Well,
That guy
still,
was
every
baked.
memory,
Like, that guy was done.
every memory charm seemed to have that effect on them. Like, same with Lockhart. He had his memory charm and was like, what's going on? Like, I never took it as the Imperious Curse.
I took it as the Imperious Curse up
That's
until...
interesting.
Because I got the blank look, and it's like, give the answer that I want you to give of no.
That's interesting.
And,
No,
and not even say no, just shake the head no. Like, don't give any indication.
I never read it like that. That's really interesting that you did.
No, I read it up until Dumbledore literally said a memory charm. And I was like, is that the case? Because this seems a lot like Imperious Curse.
I think I didn't take it as Imperious Curse because I don't think much of what her actions were doing indicated.
It was Harry's description of it. Everything seemed to kind of like just blank out. And her literal anxiety seemed to ebb away, and she's just like no.
Just chill.
Yeah.
I really just took it more as she doesn't remember these things because it was a memory charm, and she's just agreeing to what questions Umbridge asks or Dumbledore asks or whatever, because she's like, yeah, I don't remember. Yeah, this might have been first meeting. Yeah, it probably was foolish of them to invite me, because I snitched. I never took it as Imperious Curse. That's interesting.
It's just how I read it. Which, I mean, the result is similar.
Yeah. I think if it had been Imperious Curse, then when he removes the Imperious Curse and she still has the memory, there's still, I mean, if anything, that causes more opportunities for her to get revenge and snitch more, because you just put a curse on me, an unforgivable one. So I think the memory charm is simpler and, I hate to say more humane, but kinda, just because it's like you're forgetting the lessons of the illegal meeting you weren't supposed to be part of.
I just thought that this was a massive invasion of personal privacy that's really sketchy and borderline illegal, if not illegal. I know we're supposed to be rooting for it, but at the same time, part of me is like, this little section shows us that our heroes are also a little morally questionable.
I guess my take on it is Kingsley with the memory charm seems to be more like a surgeon than Lockhart with a memory charm. Lockhart doesn't really care what damage he does. It's just, I'm going to do it and I'm really good at it. I feel like Kingsley is going to be more specific of what memories you're not going to remember. And it was just the one of...
It's your intent. Lockhart has a specific intent. Kingsley had a specific intent. However, they're both getting what they want out of the encounter. Mm-hmm. In this very specific moment...
Lockhart's is... I mean, it's all to benefit themselves to a degree. Yes. But Lockhart's is way more to himself than
it's more sinister.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's the same thing.
It's for the greater good, Dan.
I don't know. You guys that are listening, all of you listeners from around the world,
tell us your thoughts.
Tell us your thoughts on whether you think that Kingsley memory charm on Marietta is a little sketchy or not.
Yeah, or did you read it as the Imperious Curse? Because I really never ever did. So that's really interesting to me.
Speaking of that interaction in the room with all of those people, the Fudge and the Ministry representation there, I do have a question. Do you think when the Quibbler comes out and Fudge sees all of these Death Eaters named, some of which are in his Ministry of Magic, you know, you have Lucius come in there every day. You have McNair, who's literally on your payroll.
Right.
Do you look into that? Or do you just take the Quibbler for such a joke that you're just like, it's the Quibbler, we can't even base an investigation off of that? Or do you base a joke investigation off? You have to do something, right?
I don't know. I think that if he does anything, it's an acknowledgement that Dumbledore might have any piece of possibly being right about Voldemort, and we can't acknowledge that.
If you have a specific accusation from Harry Potter...
Well, it's Harry Potter. We've been painting him as a
That's
fool
fine.
for a year.
But everyone in your wizarding world knows that name, Harry Potter. That comes with some level of, oh, Harry Potter said this?
I think it's hard for some people to admit their own flaws in logic and mistakes. And Fudge is a proud man. And for him to be like, wait, I have enemies surrounded by myself named by Harry Potter?
Okay.
I'm not going to...
That might work for Lucius. And that might work for guys like Crabbe and Goyle and Knott or whatever. McNair, is a Death Eater.
I still think it's, for him, it's pride.
You don't be like, hey, McNair, that scar or that mark that we know you have on your arm. Nothing?
Pride,
Dan.
Dan. Pride is his downfall.
You don't even
literally, pride is his downfall. That's why he loses his job.
You don't talk to the executioner and just be like, hey, he named you as being there.
By him.
I mean, probably is. But it's like...
I really think Fudge is just too prideful to
acknowledge it whatsoever.
Stubborn. Yeah.
So you're saying 0 steps. That Quibbler article comes out.
I think
names are named.
I think it's, sometimes when, like, you tell a kid don't do something, and of course, what do they automatically do? That, because there's the spite behind it, and there's, you don't tell me what to do. You don't name Death Eaters and expect me to follow through on interviewing them. Like, if you say they're Death Eaters and I say they're not Death Eaters, we're at a standstill. I think he's just too stubborn.
No investigation whatsoever.
Yeah.
No steps.
That's what I think.
I mean, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just thinking, like,
it's stupid.
No one says a word about that?
Imagine being one of his coworkers and being like, the magazine said he's a Death Eater and he has a desk like 3 down from mine.
And he always carries this large axe.
He's always creepy in the elevator. I always try to avoid going to the bathroom.
He always stares at me from across the room.
Just like stroking
unblinkingly with the very long eyelashes that he...
Do you think he curls them around his battle axe?
Maybe. Thought we were getting away from the eyelash conversation. You were wrong. I believe you had some thoughts on some previous conversations.
Yeah, you and Molly had the Valentine's Day date episode, which, as I said in, I think, the first episode of this book, I hate the Valentine's Day date. It is so cringy to me, and every time I read it, I do not like it. But
why?
It's just because it goes so wrong, and it's like every character is just... they're not making the best decisions emotionally, and it all escalates and backfires upon itself, and it's a failure of communication on many different levels. And I think listening to your guys' episode, I think I gave Cho more credit than I have ever done in the past. I thought you guys had a really good point with bringing up the fact that Hermione isn't innocent in this either. Because, like, obviously Hermione should have told Harry why she wanted him to come meet her with Rita. Like, if she had mentioned that, he could have given Cho that information, and then she could have been like, oh, okay, I guess that's more innocent than what I'm thinking that you're meaning. So let's go. That's cool. Cho is flawed for bringing up the whole, like, oh, Roger asked me out, and oh, do you think Cedric was thinking about me before he died? Like, no! He died in a second. He didn't have time for such things. What a stupid question. And then Harry, like, he just doesn't know how to tactfully bring up the fact that Hermione is not actually his secret little lover. She's just a friend who asked him to, like, bring the girl with, whatever. So I think they're all flawed.
It's a shame that Cho takes the brunt of a lot of fan hatred when I don't think she really deserves it very much.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she gets too much heat for the crying all the time thing, and part of that's on the author because that's how she establishes the character.
I think it's just meant to contrast Harry's calmness until Sirius dies.
If she's painting Cho as this weak, sobbing mess in a negative light, Cho is portrayed in a fairly negative light. Characters like Hermione and Ginny are showed in this light of heroism and being...
Heroes don't cry.
Yeah, toughness and, being emotionally tough is just as important as being physically tough, which there's levels to that. You could still show emotion and be emotionally tough. I don't think she does a fair job of doing that. I think Cho... There are moments when she does portray Cho as a strong, independent, intelligent, capable individual.
Usually when it's pre-Cedric. When she was like Quidditch star, it was like, ooh, she's pretty. Ooh, she's so good on the team. Oh, when she's with her friends, she's so popular. Post-Cedric, then it's she can't get through the day without crying in the bathroom. She can't get through anything without falling to pieces. Well, yeah, she went through a trauma. Like, once again, there's no counseling, there's no therapy.
Subtly, very subtly, she just slips it in there very quickly. We get a hint that Cho is a strong, capable, intelligent person in this chapter, where
she has a Patronus.
She can produce a fully corporeal Patronus, which is not easy to do.
Which also shows if she's able to have a happy enough memory to create a Patronus, one, I wonder what the memory is, but also, two, that shows that she's working through her emotions, and I think part of being able to do that is the fact that she is crying. She is processing it by crying. She's
not shoving it to the side like Harry honestly does.
Right.
And then it bubbles up in very negative ways.
Until Sirius dies, then it's the mass explosion.
Harry manifests it in different ways. It bubbles up when he yells at Ron and Hermione very early on in the book. It bubbles up.
His not being able to shut up around Umbridge.
Yes. it shows itself in certain places. It shows itself in the lessons for occlumency. He just represses all of it, and then when it comes out aggressively, and then Snape is like, whoa.
Right.
What were all of these? None of that is supposed to be happening. What are we doing?
That's why he sucks at occlumency so much. So if anything, it's portrayed as this negative thing, but I am on team cry your heart out. Like, Cho is doing the right thing here. It's just a shame that it's portrayed as such a bad thing.
It's okay to cry. That's an okay thing.
Hopefully this podcast isn't making you cry, though.
Hopefully not. But there's more to Cho than what a lot of people take at surface value. So I'm hoping we're doing a pretty good job of shedding some light on a character that I think has been mostly downtrodden. But let us know if you are a Cho fan. Let us know if you enjoy the character of Cho and thinks she might get shoved to the side a little bit too hastily. But once again, thank all of you for sharing this podcast and commenting and participating in our polls and just listening. It's been wonderful to see all of that support in number form.
Yeah.
It would be...
I get a kick out of seeing the numbers grow. I check it fairly frequently, and anytime there's a new one, I'm like, ooh, look at that.
It would be even better if we saw it from you guys. So show us. Tag us in any of those Spotify Wrapped notifications that you guys get, and let us know if you guys are listening to us. You always have that support the podcast link wherever you can find this podcast to donate financially. And like I said, it's a lot of time we put into this to make this work. It's a lot of time I put in editing, behind the scenes, making this thing go. Scheduling for all of our guests that come on is not easy. There's also a link to leave a voice message. So if you want to leave us a voice message so we can hear you actually commenting on the episode or with your 2 cents on whatever argument we had that day.
Yeah, or things you want us to
give us your thoughts.
Or things we didn't bring up or think of.
Q&As, just in general. Yeah. Any questions you guys have for us regarding Harry Potter, that's awesome.
I mean, how many people did you say there were out there? Over 9,000?
over 9,000 people have us as one of their top 10 podcasts.
Okay, you 9,000 people, send us your thoughts.
We will try to deal with them as best we can. No, but we thank all of you for listening, and we really appreciate it. Help this podcast grow, and we will see you back again next week for another big chapter, chapter 28. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.